Hello and welcome to our tutorial on integrating Open Source BIRT with the Hortonworks Sandbox. I'm going to demonstrate how to integrate Open Source BIRT with the Hortonworks Sandbox by creating a data source connecting to the sandbox and a couple of data sets that retrieve data from the sandbox's Hive 2 server. The data I will be retrieving is a snapshot in time of occupational information that includes an occupational code, description, total number of employees in that field, and the average salary for each of these occupations. In my fictitious scenario for this tutorial, my goal is to identify occupations that have the best potential for the highest salary. And since we're curious, we'll be creating a report to visualize which occupations have the highest salaries, but more importantly, we also want to identify opportunities where we have the fewest number of employees in a particular occupation that also pays the highest average salary. With that introduction, let's start step 1 of this tutorial by creating a new BIRT project. And within this project, we'll create a new BIRT report. Now that we have the report we're going to work on, we're going to create a Hive 2 data source to connect to the Hive 2 server located on the Hortonworks Sandbox. Make sure that the IP address matches the IP address shown in the Sandbox's terminal window. And the default username is Sandbox. We'll test a connection to make sure it is successful. With this new data source, we're going to create two data sets, one for detail and one for summary. As you'll see, we are going to use the same query for both the detail data set and the summary data set. We will differentiate between this detail and the summary by using filters within the data set itself. We're first going to edit the dataset for the detail and apply the filter that will remove one of the aggregate rows that exist in the dataset. And the aggregate row is a grand total for all occupations, and it's denoted by a code of 00-40. In the summary dataset, we're going to filter out the same row Then, in addition, since we only want the summary records, we're going to match a code with a substring for the last 4 characters, and the substring matches 0000. Those are existing aggregate rows in the data. When we preview our results, you can see that we're only retrieving the rows with 4 zeros in the code. In step 2 of this tutorial, we are going to be designing page 1 of the report. We'll be designing the narrative section. We're first going to set up the master page, not to include a header or a footer, because we're going to use the entire page. We also want to make sure we have no left margin and no right margin. Next, we're going to go to the outline view where you can easily see all the items in the report. We're going to insert a grid, and we're going to make it 2 columns by 2 rows. The second row, we're going to merge the 2 columns into one. We'll start in the first cell, and we're going to insert 3 label elements and 1 text element. For our text element, we're going to set the type to be HTML, and we're going to paste in some code that's in the tutorial. Now on the top 3 labels, we're just going to make some headers. And then in the property editor, we're going to style the fonts. You can style these as you see fit, or you can use the values I'm using here. In addition to the font styling for the longer narrative paragraph, we're going to give it a little bit of left and right padding. Just set it off a little bit, and let's save our results. Let's preview the report so far and see what we have for our narrative. To me, that looks good. In step 3, we are going to be designing the pie chart that is showing in the upper right of the report. We'll start by inserting a chart. We're going to select it as a type pie chart, and we're going to use our data from our summary data set. We're going to drag our data fields to the appropriate locations, and we're going to add a top 5 salary filter. We also want to sort on the salary in descending order. Now we'll just apply a bit of styling. We're going to get rid of some of the chart titles and series titles. We'll select translucent to give it a lighter look. We'll put a little space between the pies. We'll set the labels for the pie slices to be inside the pie slice, and we'll give it a $sign as a prefix to denote currency. Let's also not display the legend. Now that our pie is finished, let's just resize it a bit. Let's make it a 3" by 3" pie. And also, let's center it in that table cell. For step 4, we will be designing the summary table located in the upper right under the pie chart we've just created. We will go to the cell that contains the pie chart and do an insert element, and we'll insert a table. We will give it 2 columns, 1 detail row, and we will use the summary data set. We're going to add sorting, just like we did in the pie chart, to sort salary in descending order. We'll also add a filter, as we did in the pie chart, to filter the top 5 salaries. To populate data within the table, we simply drag and drop the columns we want. In this case, we're going to use description and salary. We will format salary to be currency. We'll set it to have no decimal places. We will use a comma and a $sign as a symbol. We'll do some styling. We'll left justify the description column, right justify the salary column, resize the columns a bit, and give the headers a bit more descriptive text. We'll save and preview our report, and that looks good to me. For step 5 of this tutorial, we are going to be placing the bar chart that is shown on the first page of the report. To do this, we will go to the merged table cell, right-click and choose Insert Chart. We will make it a bar chart. We will use data from our summary data set. Drag our description to the category series. Drag our salary to the value series. We'll set a sort order of descending salary. We're going to make this translucent as well. We're going to change the spacing between the bars to be a bit smaller than the default. On the x-axis, we're going to have to format the labels to be at a 45-degree angle so they fit better on the page. On the y-axis, we're simply going to add a prefix of a $sign and no decimals to the y-axis label. We're also going to display the major grid lines on the y-axis. For the chart title, we're going to give it a bit more descriptive text. And we're going to reduce the font size to 10. On the legend, we're going to uncheck visible. And in the property editor, we're going to resize this to a width of 8 inches and a height of 5 1/4 inches. We'll save and preview. And the results look good. In step 6, we will be designing the detail table that takes up the remainder of the report. We will start by going to the body of the report in the outline, insert element, and we'll choose table. We will select it to have 4 columns and base it off the detail data set. We're going to set a page break to always happen before displaying this table. Now we're going to add 3 groups. The first grouping, we're going to simply group on code. For the second grouping, we're going to group on the code category. We're going to do a substring on the code for the first 2 characters. Then we're going to add one more group on the code, and this one's going to have no detail, so we'll need to click the Hide Detail checkbox. Now we'll just delete any values that the designer automatically entered. We will go to our detail data set and drag all 4 columns into our table. We are dragging these into the third group that we've created. For each of the group headings that do not have data within them and the footers, we are going to hide the element so they don't display any white space. We're also going to hide the column for code. Next, we're going to apply our conditional formatting. So the first thing we're going to do is give the salary cell a background color of yellow, meaning no highlight. Then we're going to add a highlight for salary. Where the salary is in the top 25%, we're going to change the background color to green. Another highlight where the salary is in the bottom 25%, we're going to give it a background color of red. And one more highlight where the code substring last 4 characters matches 4 zeros. We're going to style it denoting that this is an occupation category. We're going to repeat this process for the total employees column as well. Background color of yellow, denoting no highlighting. And the highlighting here is going to be where total employees is in the top 25%. We're going to make this one red. And where the total employees is in the bottom 25%, we'll make this green background. And we'll add the highlight for the occupation category. We'll add some additional formatting and styling. And we're going to say where the row number mod 2, where that is equal to 0, we're going to assign a very subtle gray background. This will allow striping on our details to read the rows better. And like our other columns, we're going to add the occupation category to display as a header. We're going to format the salary to be currency as we have before. We'll format the total employee column as a fixed decimal with no decimal places and a 1,000 separator. We'll then do some justification on the columns. Change the header slightly to be more descriptive. We'll set a white border between the rows. On the top of the cell. And on the very top header, we'll just give it a black background and white text. Resize the columns a bit. Save. And let's add a left-hand white border before we finish this up on the salary cell and also on the total employee cell. Now we'll save. The final step in this tutorial is to actually view the report. We'll click in the View in Browser icon, which pulls up the browser with the report in it, and you can see the first page, and you can see that we have pagination built into this report. There are a bunch of different exporting formats, such as PDF, and we can export, let's export as Excel as well. Let's just do the detail table, just pages 2 through the end. And we'll open this in Excel, and you can see that it not only retains all the formatting, but the numbers are actual numbers and the text are actual text in Excel.